My name is Tom Dangelo. I am a very wobbly brother. And this is one of life's most rewarding relationships. It truly is. There is a bond that you develop between the mentor and the mentee that will go on and on and on. Whether the mentee moves on to another mentor because he needs more information than that mentor has is of little or no importance. The point is that you establish a relationship and you started the process. Also remember that as a mentor, it's a two-way street. You can learn as much from the man you're mentoring as he can from you. It is a sharing of ideas, sharing of philosophies, and a growth pattern that you make together. Mentoring. Not coaching. Mentoring.
What's the difference?
I'll explain it to you. Please read that. I don't need to read it to you. If you're going to have mentors in your life, now I will also tell you this at this point. If you find if you are seeking a mentor and you're looking for someone to take you on the journey, and you do not find someone in your lodge that you can connect with, it is not unreasonable to find that mentor in another lodge. It is not unreasonable, and it's not disrespect to your lodge, but you have to have a connection. And you can sit in lodge and watch the ritual and understand that this is a process. But if you want to talk about the ritual, what it means, along with other things in your life, then you have to find a mentor. If you should ever graduate to the point where you want to mentor another individual, it can actually be this level. I mean, you can have a mentee down here, a mentor and another mentor up here, mentoring this guy who's mentoring this guy. Okay? It is almost multi-directional. You can get 3 or 4 men in a room, and each can mentor the other on certain subjects, on certain aspects of life.
Oh, it's a party next door.
I'm sorry?
It's a party next door.
I know that, but one fragmentation grenade will shut it down.
You were in the Navy?
I was a Fleet Marine Force corpsman.
There you are. Okay, Doc.
Comparison between a mentor and a coach. Mentoring is not cloning. I don't want anybody to be like me. I don't want a mini me out there. I'm not trying to clone another individual to be like me. All I can give to that human being is what I know in here. So I don't want to clone him. I want to guide him. I want to share my experiences with him. I want him to be able to look and see the light. And if I can help turn on that switch, that is what I will do. And hopefully I will turn on the switches in here this evening, because I'm talking from here. This is the mentor part. Mentoring comes from the heart. Coaching comes from here. Difference. So when you start the process, and you do a dual role, and I will talk about that, you play 2 games. When you're mentoring, you work from here, and when you assume the role of the coach, you work from here. You can do it. It's a dance, but you can do it. I would suggest that you seek a mentor. Now, I told you I was a drunk, and that's okay, I don't care. One of the things I was told when I first went to a meeting was that if I walked into a room and I saw a man sitting there with a sparkle in his eye and a zest for life, and I looked in the mirror and I saw a 1,000-yard stare, maybe I better go park myself beside him and find out what it is that made him that way. And if that is the case, then why would that not be the same in a Masonic lodge? If you walk into a lodge and you sit there very quietly and patiently, and you see a man stand up where you see a man quietly sitting in the corner and people are walking over and talking to him. And you know he's not selling drugs, right? then what do? This man must have something. Can I sit down for a couple of minutes and talk to him? A mentor is a role model. He demonstrates successful techniques and behaviors. Remember, we're judged by our behaviors. The only person in this room I cannot see is myself. And that holds true of each of you. Mentoring requires that you close your mouth at times and open your ears. Because when you're talking, you're not listening. And sometimes a man must come to you and talk with you about things and discuss them. And he may just want to talk them out. And if you're his mentor and his friend, you will listen. And then you will try to give him advice if he seeks it. He may not want it. He may just want to pour it. I'm really concerned because I have tried this senior deacon stuff, and I just don't get it. And he's just he's throwing hissy fit. Let it go. It's okay. You got work. Work on skill development. Coaching is cloning. Cloning. I tell the individual, you are going to be the junior deacon, and you have certain duties to perform, and they must be performed the same way each and every time. And the next man will do the same thing in the same way each and every time. Because that is floor work. And floor work is a cloning methodology. It teaches regimentation. It teaches them a sense of propriety and a sense of duty. Walk off like this. I know what I did. Make your facing movement like so, and you drill them into it. That's coaching. It's perfecting some portion of floor work or ritual. That's coaching. Excuse me, I'm doing this again. Do I look any better now? No, I tried. It was a work in progress. I instruct the mentee, the individual that I'm coaching, in that process. But then later on, he says, well, why do we do it that way? Then I have to explain to him that we are in a place called Sancto Sanctorum. When the doors are closed, the outside world is gone. Anything that we do within the doors after the lodge is tiled is to be Masonic in nature. And it is special, it is precious. And in order to make sure that everybody in that room is entitled to that grandeur, which we call Masonic work and ritual and degree work, the lodge must be purged. And it was purged in the old days in the quarries. They had guards and they checked to make sure that everybody was wearing their apron correctly. If you didn't have your apron correct, then you may not be a person that is supposed to be there. So we do the same thing, we purge the lodge. That's the reason we do these things. When we walk up and down and we collect the pass, that's to ensure that everybody in that room is entitled to the work that's going to be done on that level. And you explain it to him in a way that he understands that he is the soldier, if you will, the guardian of that secret. And he reports to the master and the senior warden. And there were reasons for that. And if you take the time to study it a little bit, you'll be able to impart that knowledge to them in a way that makes them want to do it again. Consistent and constant counseling. It's tough, it really is. Because our lives are so caught up today with that cell phone and this computer and the Little League and Eastern Star and all the other things that go on. And like I said, my wife is a Masonic widow. I do this. I've done this for 11 years, 10 years, 11 years now. I do it every year because I like doing it. I do it because I can connect with people. It's important to connect. If we are to survive as a fraternity, we must have a good mentoring pool and a good coaching pool. And we must be able to connect with those that we speak to. And I would like for you to be proud to know me. So my behaviors must reflect my belief. I don't automatically turn this off when I go outside that door. Now I know the world is an ugly place, but I also know that Masonry is a beautiful place. And so I can balance it. But my conduct in public is the same as my conduct in private. I will not forsake you, my brother. Prepare the drills. You can actually, if you folks would like to have any one of the Grand Lodge committees come to your lodge and give you a presentation, all you need to do is ask your deputy. Have the master ask the deputy. You can't ask me, the master must ask. Or you get permission from the master and he has buy-in to the fact that you're going to ask for a presentation. We cannot come to your lodge and say, hi, I'm here to teach you mentoring. The guy says, not on my watch. Because I didn't ask you to come in to do that. So if you want to know more about some of these things, ask some of us to come out. But within each district of the Orient or the Grand Jurisdiction of Washington, there's some kind of a Lodge Officers Association or something, I would hope. I know that there's one in my district, and I know there's one in the district down below me and the one across the bridge. And each of those districts has a LOMA meeting or an LOA meeting or whatever you wish to call it, a DEMA meeting. And they get together once a month. And at that point in time, that would be the most excellent time to have a presenter come out and talk to you for 10 or 15 minutes, whatever it is, about some of these things that I'm discussing today. And the reason I say that is because there is a whole handout on just deacon training, what their responsibilities are, who they report to, why it's done the way it is, and it's in printed format. And if you ask for it, they'll send it to you. So that's a carefully prepared developmental exercise. It's important that we do it because we have to have consistency in our lodge. When I come into a lodge, I look for certain things. And it's inherent in me to do so. I look to see how the great lights are opened. I look to see the reverence treated to those two precious items, the square and compasses, the jewels. I look to see how it's done. Because the sun does not pop up in the east. Bleeping, there it is. So the Bible should not pop up like that. The Holy Bible, the great light of Masonry, forever sheds its benignant rays upon every lawful assemblage of free and accepted Masons. About 7 seconds. That's what I count. It doesn't make any difference. It has to be done with reverence. The tools themselves should be taught, treated with reverence. And I watch for that. And there's a reason for it. That Bible laying on the altar was the only rule of law they had in ancient times. And that square and compasses may be the only two instruments for geometry, the G, in the whole area. When it's laid out, you don't break the line between the master and those jewels. Why? Because he's charged with the responsibility for the safeguard of those jewels. That's military. Guys say, well, why can't we do that? You tell them how it's done and then explain to them how it's done. Mentoring. Coaching, how you got it there. Mentoring, why it's there and what it represents. Am I connecting people? I hope so. I hope so. Mentor, coach. Please read this. I'm going to go through that. Caring is the core of the relationship. To care about how the man is developing, and he to care for the wisdom and advice you give him. Doesn't have to take all of it, but at least give it to him, and give it to him from here. And it should never be in the form of a lecture or an admonition. Leave that to the coach. Okay, now the coach can do that. See, I told you not to do it that way. Mentor said, my son, pay attention to your coach. The protege cares because of the help he's received. Affection and respect may exist out of gratitude. Gratitude for that somebody has taken the time and the effort to explain it to him. I did excuse me, the 7 tenets, the 7 tenets of the 7 of Masonic excellence. I'm sorry, the 7 elements of Masonic excellence this morning, the very first thing. And when I talked to those men in that room, the Masons that were sitting there, some of them had never ever heard the concepts that I was laying out. And they went, "What? Wow, is that what that is?" Yeah, that's what that is. This is not a secret, but it is something that we need to know about, and we need to share it. And if we don't give it away, we don't get to keep it. Because if I don't tell you what I believe, I'll forget what it is that I believe. If I don't represent myself in a manner which I hold myself to in a core standards, then I forget my core standards. This gets to be touchy because some guy, and I've done it myself, I had a fellow that I really enjoyed mentoring and coaching both. But if you don't do it in the manner that I'm talking to you about from your heart, you run the risk of breaking the relationship. Because it begins as a relationship and it's a journey. Life is a journey. I've heard that many times. I've been on a rough one. But I'm here. Actually, the mentee controls this relationship, believe it or not. Because once you step out of the role of mentor and you become the coach again, you say, well, you have to be here to such a, you don't ever tell anybody it has to be here. We hope that you'll be here at such and such a time because we're going to do this. And if he wasn't treated with the respect due him, he may decide not to show up. You're fired. Okay? I've been fired. Get acquainted. Now, did everybody attend the Generational Insight? How many people in here attended the Generational Insight thing that Right Worshipful Brother Jim Mendoza gave this morning? One man. But in it talks about the disparities between generations, the differences. So it's kind of difficult for me to mentor a 25-year-old. I have no idea what he's done with the computer and the cell phone. The guy can run circles around me on a computer, and I sit there and I go, wow. His life experience is a heck of a lot different than mine. He's grown up in a different generation. I'm a traditionalist. I was born at 42. And so I have traditional values. I have sense of duty, standards of conduct. And I'm rigid in those sometimes, and sometimes I don't bend very easily. I'm a retired command master chief. I don't bend easy at all. But I have to understand that he comes from a flexible society. So how do I pair up with someone like that? Cautiously, I can tell you. So if you're going to be the pairing and looking for people to mentor people, try to put them in the same age group, as close as possible. Now, there are some generational groups that will mesh with others, even though they may be, excuse me, that's going to start coughing. And it's okay to do that, but try to remember that you're trying to get an element here where there's a reasonable belief that they are going to connect with the other individual, whether they snowboard together or whatever it might be. It's irrelevant. It's the connection that is the most important thing. Learn about each other's styles and abilities. Some people have some funny habits, and they'll let you know. And that doesn't make them bad people, but you have to understand their styles, abilities, what time they go to work, when they get up, those kinds of things if you're going to set up some kind of a process where you can both get together on the same night or whatever. You can't have really conflicting and diverging work schedules. It doesn't work well. Just remember that. You make it work, but just remember that you're going to have some difficulties. Define what is expected of each other. When a man comes to me and wants to talk to me about masonry, and I've talked with him for a period of time, and the other brothers of the lodge have talked with him and they feel comfortable sending a petition, I ask them what they expect of masonry. The same as I would ask Carlos, what do you expect out of this relationship that we're about to establish as mentor and mentee? What is it that you seek? I might not be able to do it. I may not be able to give it to you. We have to understand that we may have the ability to give to another human being that which you possess, if that is what he's looking for. But sometimes they don't even know what they're looking for. When they came through the door of the lodge for the first time, they came neither barefoot nor clad, naked nor shod, or barefoot or shod, excuse me, hoodwinked with a cable tow once around his neck. He had no idea what was inside these doors. So he may not know what he's looking for until somebody flips on the switch and goes, ooh, hey, that resonates here. This is the connection. I cannot emphasize it enough. Masonry is a spiritual journey. We must approach it spiritually. We have doctrine, we have drill, but we have spirituality. That's what makes us better, man. Not religion, spirituality. Establish a communication pattern so that you guys are on the same wavelength. If unrealistic expectations lead to unrealistic resentments. Okay? I thought you understood what I told you. You didn't tell me anything. What do you mean? I just said, no you didn't. What you said was, so you and I didn't establish what it was I was really looking for, and I didn't ask you if you really understood. I had an unrealistic expectation. And then, because you didn't do it, I cop a resentment. Set the ground rules. Do not set any expectation. Because this is a journey, it's a process. It's like a bird taking off in flight. And we have to maintain a steady upward path. Sometimes we do this. As long as we don't plant it in the deck, we're okay. All right? It's a process. Learn the limits. Understand your boundaries. Troops crave discipline. Old Gunny told me that. Marine Corps Gunny. What he meant was that we had to have boundaries. Not to go outside these boundaries. Every human being craves structure. Structure is essential to us. We have to establish the structure of this process. It's a verbal contract, but you must both understand what is expected of the other. How well is the learning going? You have to go back and ask them periodically, how's your coach doing? Or if you are the dual role model, am I getting through to you? Is there something I can do? What is it that you would like to know? If I do not know the answer, I will find it. I do not tell them I don't know and walk off. Don't ever do that. That is a disservice to your brother, and it is a shortcoming of yourself. Assess the progress. Sit down and talk. How do you feel about this? Are you comfortable? Do you feel that you'll be able to receive the district deputy and escorting around the lodge? Are you comfortable in giving the charge of the first degree? Those things that they're learning. You have to make sure they're comfortable before you throw them out there on the floor and let them go, oh, and I clutched. You have to let them know that you've made the same mistakes. And then somebody along the way straightened you out and helped you. You have to be able to share your journey from the person that mentored you to where you're at now. But also remember that you still may go look for another mentor, because I go look for mentors. I have never learned enough. And I'm not that smart, I guarantee you. I'm rigid, but I'm not that smart. I am sincere in what I do. Work out the disagreements. Sit down and just say, look, I'm sorry. I wish I had explained it to you better. Don't be afraid to apologize to your brother. It's not a failure. It's humanism. We can all be perfect. There's only one perfect entity, and it certainly isn't me. And I hope you don't believe it's you. Ego is one of the greatest disasters a man has. Ego stands for edging God out. Simple. When you believe that you are greater than He, then you have a problem. The sun does not rise and set on your head. As a mentor, very, very important. The unwritten rules that exist in every lodge, called the lodge traditions, and where the past masters normally park themselves, and all those things that the novice mason does not know. And he comes in and he's ready. Man, I am ready. And the past master says, excuse me, you're sitting in my seat. I didn't see a name on it. It doesn't make any difference. A good mentor takes the novice aside and says, there are certain things that we observe in this lodge. Now, I go to a lodge periodically where every time the pillared officer stands up, he takes his gavel, he places it over his chest, just like the master does when you're installing him. But each one of the pillared officers does it. The junior and senior warden and the master, when they are all standing, hold the gavel like this. Now, there is a past Grand Master who believes that that is not proper. But nowhere in the code, or in the handbook, or the lodge officer's handbook, or anything else, does it say you can't. So another wise and gentle past master explained to that individual that it was a tradition of that lodge that had existed for 95 years. And the worst thing that anybody can do is mess with the tradition of the lodge if it does not violate the code or violate the monitor. Just leave it alone. If you go to a lodge and you see them doing something that's different than your lodge, you'll say, well, you know what, leave it alone. It's their lodge and their tradition. So explain those things to him. Don't let him step on a landmine. Hallowed traditions of the lodge. And I do mean we have some grumpy, oh my, curmudgeon, I like that because that's who I am. Sensitive. We have them in every lodge. In almost every business we have curmudgeons. In almost every walk of society, every facet of society, we have curmudgeons. Just let the young man, or the new mason, if you will, know about the curmudgeons. And you don't have to say, hey, look, don't step on his toes because he gets grumpy. Yeah, he's already grumpy. Just caution them a little bit, because if you go up and you approach them in the right way, they can be the nicest people in the world. It's breaking the barrier. As a coach, to teach and impart skills and knowledge and skill sets, to sit and run them through ritual, to make sure they say the words right, to make sure that when they are doing the ritual that is done in the proper sequence, and to make sure that it's measurable and reproducible. Measurable and reproducible. Cannot emphasize that enough. Emotional support in stressful situations. You know, brotherly love, relief, and truth, the three tenets of masonry. Relief is one that everybody has a misconception of, and I've talked about it this morning. And relief does not mean personality. It doesn't mean that at all. It's not charity. Relief is to sit and listen to another man pour out his soul to you about something that's troubling him, something that's been weighing him down. And to sit without a critical thought or a critical eye, but to simply listen, something that a patient priest would do. And he may ask you for help, and he may want to do nothing more than just tell you his problem. Be kind enough and brotherly enough and the quality of mentor that he's looking for to listen to him, to pay attention to him. And if he asks for help, be kind enough if you can to give it to him. Clarify his goals and plan of action to achieve them. His sweat pumps are running. I'm telling you, the district deputy's coming, and I am the junior deacon, and I know that I'm supposed to stand up and do this, and I don't remember when I'm supposed to pick up the rod because there's a knock. Somebody says the deputy's outside, and oh my gosh, here it is, and the Klingon warship is afloat right beside the line. Here he comes. And this guy's got sweat pumps running. Help him. Make him understand that deputy started in the same place he's sitting in now and probably made the same darn mistake. And probably more times than he may make it this evening. Set him at ease. We're not a warring class, we're Masons. I don't need to read that to you, you can read it yourself. I'm trying to give you a smorgasbord of ideas that will allow you to go out and successfully find a mentor, as well as to start a mentoring program in your lodge if you do not have one. At this point in time, I happen to have in my former nicotine stained fingers 2 items that are not in your workbook.
Oh.
One is a mentoring handbook. I have enough copies for everybody here. And the other one is the coach-mentor-candidate relationship to be used in conjunction with the new candidate education program, which the Grand Lodge Washington Masonic Code says that every new Mason shall receive. If you're going to be a mentor, I would suggest that you do that course yourself so that you have a better idea of what he's going to be doing, and you will be better able to assist him with it. This is the go-to on how to administer the course. When I was the chairman of membership development several years ago, the committee that I chaired at that time put this together. I put this one together in 2003. It's still a published document. So, would you like to have some?
Yes.
If so,
Yes.
Carlos, would you mind, sir?
No, resounding yes.
In unison, I believe.
Did anyone say please?
I did.
Give me 2, I'll take it. There you go. There you go. This is a break right here. We need a little break. I need to stretch my back.
I mean, Carlos.
Thank you.
This is a smorgasbord book. Take out of it what you can use and leave the rest.
Thank you.
It's like going through that chow line at noontime.
All right.
Take some of it and leave the rest for others.
No questions yet? Any questions?
Do I have a question?
No, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Questions? So, I'm not a big fan of being a mentor anytime soon, nor a coach, really. I'm not a big fan of being a mentor or a coach. You say that a coach needs to clarify the goals and the plans and the actions to attain it.
One only video.
To me, that assumes a level of hubris or experience that I do not know when I will attain, right?
Thank you, sir.
I don't have it now.
Thank you. You don't have
When will I know the hubris is ready? Huh? Note the term hubris.
You'll know.
You will know.
I believe I know now.
You will know.
You'll know the moment you raise your hand to volunteer as a candidate's mentor. That's when you'll know.
Mentor, but the worshipful master is always looking for a coach. They ain't looking for mentors, are they? I mean, I've never seen differentiation between
Coaches can
those two in our lodge.
So the
very
difference,
easily
Scott,
turn into
Then
a mentor.
establish it.
the difference, Scott, is that when I taught you the work, I taught you what the work meant
It's true.
and how to handle yourself in lodge.
It's true.
That's the difference.
This is not an instantaneous, the light goes on, everybody goes out here, a mentor. I'm simply trying to convey to you and everybody in this lodge the process that we would go through if we were seeking a mentor and what it means to be a mentor in a Massage Lodge. We have self-mentoring, reading from the book, reading from a computer, reading from an iPhone, finding information, and then working through the problem by ourselves. It's self-mentoring. Traditional mentoring is a relationship between two human beings, an exchange of ideas, in a way that's less regimented than anything else.
Such an important step should not be taken by someone ill-prepared or inexperienced.
Absolutely. All you have to do is say, I'm not ready.
When we, do I snatch some pebbles from someone's hand?
Grasshopper, you know.
That's all I need to know, Tom. Thank you.
Somebody may see you sitting in a lodge and they like the way you conduct yourself and they like the way you handle yourself. And they come up and they say, "Can we have a cup of coffee?" Would you say, "I don't have time"? Informal mentoring. You may want to talk to you about something that you know something about. Mentoring is not necessarily an exchange of ideas about masonry. I learned from a young man that I was mentoring about how to operate a computer better than I did. He taught me, and I listened. It was a two-way exchange. And out of that relationship, excuse me, our bond was stronger. Because one, I had the courtesy and honesty to tell him that I did not know how to do that and ask him, and humble enough to ask him, "Would you mind teaching me?" Rather than assuming the role of a military do-do-do-do. Okay? So, there's all kinds of mentoring. It is not a structured environment. We don't have structure like that in masonry. In business you do. If you work for Boeing, you'd be assigned a mentor to run you through whatever it is that you were supposed to learn and help you develop a career path and do all of those things. Big businesses do it all the time. If an individual wishes to succeed, he hooks himself up with someone who's successful and helps him become successful himself. If you see someone in the room that has that light that you don't have, park yourself beside it and find out how it got lit. How I conduct myself in public, excuse me, is something that's terribly important because I have Masonic doodads all over my car. I wear a Masonic ring. I am judged by my actions, and the craft is judged by what I do when I'm wearing the jewelry. So I had this old Mason one time tell me when I first became a Mason, he said, "Now, Master Chief," he said, "if you decide to go to the bar and get drunk, take the jewelry off, will you?" I said, "All right, I understand." That's how I conduct myself in public. How I advertise myself. That's what's important. What do we project to the world that's going to make them want to become part of us? How do we do that? Our conduct, our actions. And if we need to sit down as a group and talk about how we're doing this, and if we have a brother of the lodge whose behaviors have perhaps not been quite as good as they should be, and we're wise enough, we take him aside and we talk to him gently and remind him of our obligations and our duties. Because we took an obligation at an altar to do certain things. And every other man that took that obligation, I have a reasonable expectation will adhere to it as well as I do. Does not mean he has to be as regimented as I am. But we have a similar set of standards based on what we are learning and the obligation we took on the altar. And the words that we regurgitated when we stood before that altar. And I sincerely submit to you that it's terribly important that every Mason prove up before the altar. And not in private, before a committee. Because I want to know that you can recite exactly what it is that your obligation represents, so that I know that you have a mental file cabinet of do's and don'ts registered up here in your brain housing group, so that when you do not do what you said you are going to do, you cannot plead ignorance. And you have set my soul at ease because you have been able to say the same words I said. Remember that when that's done, it's a snapshot in time. It means on that time, on that date, that that man made that obligation. And it's a renewal of that obligation periodically by going to Todd Lodge and conducting ourselves as we are expected to conduct ourselves. That reinforces that obligation. Because if I don't practice it, I forget it. Epitomizes the mythical who do what you want to be when you grow up, or sometimes who you don't want to be. Mentor and tormentor. I have learned much more from a tormentor than I ever did from a mentor. And I was attending a junior college and I was going to become a vocational education teacher. And I was sitting in this class and I was the older man in the class, the oldest student. And we were doing Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And that was the model for the class. And the instructor stood up and he said, I would like for you to go home tonight and write about the person that had the most influence on you in your life. Who was your role model? Who was your mentor? And I raised my hand and I stood up and I said, what about my tormentors? And he looked at me like I'd hit him with a ball bat. And he said, what? And he was a nice man. I liked him. He was good. He connected with me. I said, what about my tormentors? I learned more from my tormentors than I did from some of my mentors. And he said, explain that in writing. So I sat down and I wrote a paper and I got an A+ on it. And what it meant was that sometimes in relationships and sometimes in situations, something occurs that is so distasteful and I was treated so badly and I didn't like the outcome of the situation that I promised myself when I walked away from that thing, should I survive it, I would probably never, never, never do that if at all possible. I learned a lesson. I learned a lesson on how to handle people by watching other people handle people poorly. I learned from a tormentor because it aggravated me. It flew in the face of my sense of duty and dignity. I learned.
I quit trying to become a chief because of bad chiefs.
Well, then you had E7, but you didn't have chiefs.
Exactly.
So anyway, the difference between an E7 and chief petty officer. E7 collects his pay, chief petty officer earns it. Difference. Validation. to sit down and say, you know, you did that really well, I like it. Don't be afraid to give somebody a pat on the back and tell them when they did a good job. I walked around here the other day and talked to the lady that was serving in the mess line. Sorry, reverting back to Marine Corps. in the lunch line. And I told them what a fabulous job the staff was doing. And I would encourage all of us to at least give them that modicum of respect, because they've treated us very well here. And we forget to thank people for services that we think are just traditional and mundane. But they're going out of their way to make us feel comfortable. The least we can do is thank them for it. You can modify the goals. You can, if the mentee is the person that you are in this relationship with is telling you that I just can't get this, and you have used everything that you can possibly use in order to impart that lesson or knowledge to them, then perhaps you need to steer them to someone else. And if the mentee, the person that you are trying to mentor, says, you know, I found, I'm going to go over and talk with Worshipful Brother so-and-so in lodge number, whatever it is. And you find out that the man is receiving mentorship from that particular Worshipful Brother. Don't take umbrage at that. You gave it the very best you could. And sometimes the self-tapping needle that he inserted in your brain to learn this stuff is full. And he knows he needs to go on to someone else. Don't ever feel offended at that. And be Masonic enough to identify an individual who may be of further assistance to them and guide them in that direction. And if you never become a mentor, but you know some good people, the people that have good mentoring styles, you can point people in that direction. And you have done the service. You don't have to be the mentor. But if you're a knowledgeable individual that knows where the information's at, do it. Believe in his goal. Believe in what we are. Believe in it. Provide encouraging impetus. Give them a pat on the back. Be kind. Be human. Be Masonic. Well, buff your shoe if you have to, but you know, that's just one of those things you have. A drop kicked me through the goalpost of life, Jesus, I'm ready. Sometimes, and that's figuratively speaking, you might have to, you know, prod them a little bit to get them to move again, because they're getting lazy. Or if they're getting burned out, remember that we create Masonic widows very, very quickly if we jump in there and we accept this assignment and that assignment. And I do this every year, and I've done it for 10 years, and we plan for 10 months before I ever step on this podium to talk to you about what I believe. And, you know, past district, I'm all lots of junk, because I wasn't smart enough to say no. But I know the word now. It's no, N-O. And so I've had to tell folks that recently, and sometimes they get a little upset because I guess they like the shine on my Cadillac, I'm not sure. but tell me to get out there on the road.
Well, in private it's always no. In public it comes out sounding like yes.
I know, because they go, no, right? No, huh?
What can I help you?
Provide an environment where the mentee can make mistakes without losing self-confidence. It's okay to make mistakes. It's not okay to keep making the same mistake. It's like this friend of mine told me about his uncle. His uncle is out there building a picket fence, and they're driving nails. And all of a sudden, his Uncle Sandy smacks his thumb. Whack! And blood flies everywhere. And this is a true story. He said, my uncle grabbed his thumb and looked at me and said, if you could possibly help it, don't ever do that. If you can possibly help it, don't ever do that. You understand what I just said? Don't ever do that. Save the man the pain by telling him not to do that. The aspect of the mentor-coach relationship will make it easier for the mentee to later make decisions and act when faced with uncertainty.
Brother Tom?
Yes, sir.
On the trip over, and I'm not going to identify myself for the other person other than he is the senior warden in the lodge that I am treasurer.
And his name is Jose.
He's not going to say that.
I told you the relationship between the two of us. On our trip over here, and it took us 5 hours to drive over here, that we took turns being mentor and mentee in the exchange of conversation back and forth.
Oh yeah.
So when you look at when you're talking with a brother in lodge, you will see that relationship will change back and forth depending on the conversation and the questions and answers depending there.
The mentor and coach must establish open lines of communication, be honest with each other, connect with each other throughout everything, be thorough in their concerns, discuss clearly and effectively. Remember that expertise means little if you cannot be communicated. If I cannot connect with you from here, I can be the smartest guy in this room, theoretically speaking, and nobody will ever know it nor care. No one will ever know that I have in here the secrets of masonry. It's called my soul. And I came here to develop it and to give a part of it to you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.